Operation Sindoor demonstrated India's prowess when it comes to military superiority against Pakistan, and a large part of this was achieved by indigenous weapon systems that have been developed as part of the Make in India program over the last decade or so. These systems like the Akash Teer, the indigenous air defense system, the BrahMos, the missiles, the intermediate range missiles that were developed by the DRDO, they went a long way in demonstrating military superiority by India against Pakistan. I want to go across to a very, very special guest who's now joining us. The Defence Secretary to the Government of India, Mr. R.K. Singh, is joining us as a special guest on Brass Tacks tonight. I want to start off by asking you, so Operation Sindoor, it demonstrated India's ability to execute precision strikes, preemptive strikes against Pakistan, both in POK as well as deep inside Pakistani territory. Much of it was with indigenous technologies, whether it's the Pinaka, the guns, the Akash systems, etc. Can you explain the strategic planning and the coordination between different services that had to be achieved to ensure the success of this indigenous weapon systems?
Right. So the planning and execution was the result of rigorous coordination of intelligence gathering, and it was rooted in an integrated approach involving all the three services. This collaboration between the three services ensured a high degree of operational synergy, right from intelligence sharing to targeting and precision strikes, and it enabled us to maintain real-time situational awareness as well, so that the operations could be effected efficiently and with precision. On the broader issue of whether how we've used the different weapon systems or platforms that we have, yes, this was a result of a synergy between some of our legacy systems, both of indigenous origin as well as of foreign origin. We were able to effectively combine and integrate all of these capabilities to ensure the best possible results. At a broader level, since you mentioned escalation dominance, let me just say that I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that we are going to flip the script when it comes to terrorism. Terrorists can take us by surprise at times in terms of the time and place, but in terms of our response, we will be choosing the time and the place and the level to which we take up our response, and they should be kept on the tenterhooks when it comes to what the response will be. It will not be confined or constrained by any nuclear bogey, and the intention is to keep them guessing and to ensure also not only do we strike back, but we strike not only at the foot soldiers but at the handlers and the headquarters of these kind of forces. In other words, we intend to ensure escalation dominance even when our response may be reactive.
I do want to ask you, one of the other things that we saw during Operation Sindoor is the fusion of homegrown technology, which is your Make in India equipments that have been given a great impetus to in the last decade. The fusion of that with the foreign procurements, for example, the Akash Teer fused with the S-400, the legacy guns fused with some of the indigenously developed ones. How was this integration achieved?
So, the integration of indigenous technologies with foreign procurements was indeed a force multiplier for our defense capabilities. The fusion of systems like the Akash Teer and the IACCS, which combined the capabilities of S-400, Akash, and even the legacy guns, was a critical factor in ensuring comprehensive air defense and interception capabilities. In a sense, we were able to combine all of these different systems into a multi-layered defense architecture, leveraging both homegrown innovations and the best of foreign technologies.
So, Operation Sindoor also marked a sort of more assertive, aggressive step. It was preemptive and punitive strikes against terrorism. How is your ministry ensuring sort of long-term preparedness for a potential resurgence of cross-border threats? Now, again, there's also expectation settings when Pulwama happened, the response was Balakot. Now, when Pahalgam happened, the response was through Operation Sindoor. The next time there's going to be a terror attack, the expectation is that there would be something of a magnitude much bigger than Operation Sindoor. So, how are you dealing with that?
I think we have to take lessons from the operation to see what worked, what did not work, to see where the capability gaps and voids are, and make sure that we take proactive steps to resolve those capability gaps. That process is underway in a large way through some of our decisions that we've already taken. We've authorized the services to go in for emergency procurement for any immediate requirements that they have. That will be combined with accelerated fast-track procurements for any other weapons where the delegated powers will not suffice, and we'll have to go for larger acquisitions involving full government approval. The procurement processes themselves are being simplified and fast-tracked, as I mentioned. So yeah, this combination of factors, and also giving a level playing field to the private sector, so that we use our entire industrial base, which is the 4th largest in the world, to ensure that it also, a good part of it starts manufacturing, starts being a part of defense manufacturing, a kind of a whole of industry approach. All of these steps you will see in the coming days to ensure that a very diversified industrial base with good surge capacity can meet our needs when it comes to the armed forces.
One concern has been around the delays, the almost inordinate delays when it comes to critical defense equipment procurements. Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh had recently raised concerns about delays, whether it is the S-400s, some of those are delayed. The F-404 and 414G jet engines that are meant for the fighter jets, that has been held up for a number of years now. What is the mechanism that you're putting in place in the ministry to mitigate such risks, and also to try and speed up the process?
So you mentioned some of the delays, some of which are linked to specific issues of supply chains, as in the case of the engines for the Tejas light combat aircraft. There are others where the supply chain issues are linked to global conflicts. You mentioned the S-400, where of course the Russians have now promised us a certain delivery schedule next year. So yeah, I mean, we can't necessarily sort of ensure or guarantee against such delays. What we can ensure is that we do our procurements on time, we get our contracts signed on time, and as you may like to know, we signed a record number of contracts last year, double of the maximum that we'd ever done in our history.
Okay.
Once you sign those contracts, you give visibility to the industry, right down to the lowest vendor, that these are the orders that are on the anvil that you have to fulfill, and thereafter you get after them in terms of project management to ensure that those contracts get fulfilled. So all of those steps will be done, combined with some of the structural reforms that I mentioned, the revision and approval of a simplified acquisition process under DAP, what used to be called DAP 20, the entire book will be revised. We will also try to ensure that some of the ease of doing business issues that are faced by defense industries in areas like licensing, etc., whether we can move some of that into a deemed licensing procedure. All of those steps will help us to create, as I mentioned, a much wider defense industrial base which can meet our requirements largely indigenously. And we've also ensured this by earmarking 75% of our modernization budget solely for procurement from domestic sources.
All right. And finally, given the evolving nature of modern day warfare, we saw this particularly in light of the Indo-Pakistan conflict recently. We've been seeing this in the context of Russia, Ukraine. Do you think it's time to rethink some of the traditional platforms like tanks and fighter aircraft, etc.? Because drones seem to be at the front line of future wars. I mean, it was there, like I said, in the India-Pakistan context, in the aftermath of Sindoor. We saw that come through very visibly. Is it time to go back to the drawing board and rethink what will be at the forefront of modern day warfare now, or future wars, as it were?
I agree that we are going to have to look at different kinds of unarmed systems very closely, not only in the air, but perhaps also underwater and in other domains as well. Our armed forces are working continuously on upgrading their capability development plans to ensure that some of these new trends in warfare are adequately catered to in their capability plans. We intend to make defense industry will try to ensure that India becomes a drone superpower by providing adequate orders to domestic and industry to ensure procurement of military grade drones from within the country, It's an area where capacity is limited right now, but we intend to use our buying power to ensure that where the technology exists, we leverage existing technologies within the country. Where they don't, we will encourage our firms to tie up technologies from abroad and meet some of our requirements in this area.
All right, Mr. R.K. Singh, Defence Secretary to the Government of India, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. Thank you for your time.